Hey, I'm totally stoked to get to hang out with you. Glad that you get to hang out with me, and I get to introduce you. Well, first of all, I want you to subscribe, right? Because this is an amazing, amazing channel. We've got great content. And here's your joke. What color is the wind? It is blue. Blue. I know, stupid, huh? I know. But this is my new friend, Jason Cusick, right? Did I say that right?
Yeah, great. Yeah,
nice.
Perfect.
Nice.
Perfect.
I'm like,
yeah.
Cusick. No, good. So, Jason, where are you from?
I'm from Southern California, born and raised. Southern California.
In and out, dude?
In and out.
How do you like your In and Out burgers?
Perfect. Double, protein style. Sudbury, California. Yeah.
Animal, no?
Animal fries sometimes. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And do you do the shakes?
Strawberry shake. Straight strawberry shake. Yeah. You know you're In and Out really well. Good
Well,
for you.
I got trained.
That's right.
They moved here to Denver.
Well, God bless you. That's
great.
That's right. You got it.
So, Jason, married, kids?
Yeah, my wife and I have been married for 29 years.
Yeah.
And we have 3 kids, 2 college age, 1 high school age.
Huh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. And what do you guys do for hobbies, hanging out?
Art. I do some kind of steampunk metal art on the side, kind of stress relief kind of thing. And my family are big movie fans. We love watching movies. All kinds of movies, everything that's out. So we really enjoy that. Marvel stuff, DC stuff, more Marvel. But yeah, big movie fans.
Favorite movie?
Gosh, it's more like by genre.
Okay.
So I've got a lot of favorite stuff. So,
yeah. What's your favorite genre?
I like sci-fi stuff. I like old school sci-fi, even Star Wars, old Star Wars, stuff like that. So,
not Star Trek?
Not. I grew up with Star Trek. Not a big fan, but my grown-up years. A lot of my growing up years were in front of the TV. I'm Gen Xer, latchkey kid. So. Mom's at work. My dad passed away when I was young, and so I kind of grew up in front of the television. So a lot of good education and growing pains.
Sesame Street.
Exactly. Mr. Rogers. Yeah, all that stuff.
Did you ever do Zoom? Come on and Zoom.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I know that's kind of way back.
Yeah.
I could tell that. You had some memories. That's great. And in high school, did you do any good sports or?
No sports. Allergic to sports. That's not me. But I was into speech and debate. I wasn't a Christian when I was in high school.
Right.
And but I was really into speech and debate. And several of my Christian friends in high school, they're like, "You're going to be a preacher one day. You're going to be a pastor one day," because I seemed to do that. But really into drama and really into speech and debate. So that kind of shaped me to be a verbal person, kind of got me out of my introversion as well. So, yeah.
Introversion. What do you mean by did you think you were introverted when you were growing up?
Yeah, I was a pretty interior person. I spent a lot of time in my brain. I spent a lot of time in my head.
Yeah.
And I think even growing up, spent a lot of time alone. So in the fantasy world of movies and things, I originally wanted to be a filmmaker before I felt a call to ministry. So that's part of why I love movies and kind of live in that world.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Do you have siblings?
I have an older brother, lives nearby, and one older brother, 2 years older than me.
Is your mom still alive? My
mom is alive. Yeah, my mom is a walking miracle. She's 76 years old and has had pancreatic cancer for 7 years. No treatment. God is she says God has me around for a reason. So she goes to the church that I pastor at. She sits on the 4th row on the right. I can see her in the right. And she's an amazing woman who raised 2 teenage boys on her own after my dad died. So amazing woman.
How did your dad die?
He had leukemia. And back in the old days when we were just trying to figure out even how to treat that. And he was the 36th person in the world to get a bone marrow transplant when they were just trying to figure that stuff out. And it was rough. I was 11 years old. So it was a big change in our life. But it got me I was around hospitals a lot when I was a kid, UCLA Medical Center in particular. So.
What did you think about that when you were growing up?
At 11 years old, I was kind of fun. I mean, we walked around Westwood at 11 years old, hanging around in Santa Monica, and I didn't really understand all that was going on. But I ended up, my first ministry job was getting involved in hospital ministry, which it seemed like God was sowing some seeds there early on with me to be around hospitals and patients and doctors and nurses. And I ended up, one of my first jobs was at the hospital that my dad had got treatment in and died in. And so it was an opportunity for me to go back and experience that place in a different way, which was really, really powerful and beautiful. I was so humbled by it. So.
What did you do? What was that? What job?
So I was a hospital chaplain. So I mostly worked, we rotated around. I went through a training program at UCLA for hospital chaplaincy. And so I was on the oncology unit and rotated around on some other units, including working in the ER. So I was there full time, worked on call on weekends as a social worker in the ER, and did that work in my mid-20s, which was just an amazing opportunity to learn so much and to meet so many different people. It was in Westwood, so it was very diverse and eclectic people from all over the world. So I really got a chance, a lot like you. I mean, you're globally aware and globally involved. You know, the minute we get outside of our small world, we see people and we see God's plan for the world so differently. It's so easy for us to get locked into our own little neighborhood or our own little way of seeing things. And that kind of just blew my mind in a great way.
How long did you do that?
I did that I was a year at UCLA, and then I was another 7 or 8 years at a local hospital right around the area where I lived, where I was their first non-Catholic chaplain in a Catholic hospital. So I did that for 7 years.
Wow.
Worked on the bioethics committee and pain management committee and stuff like that, trying to really help people get the right kind of pain management and address spiritual things. So even like the body and the physiological stuff is really interesting to me and important to me. We just talked about this right before we came on, that God made us, body, soul, and spirit. And there's something beautiful about when we can understand how all those work together.
In concert, because they're not pieces and parts. Remember, what was the Wendy's commercial? Or there was one that was like parts is parts. Right. And sometimes I think we separate stuff, and when we do that, then the disconnection doesn't necessarily make an integrated whole.
Yeah, it's like a good order of animal fries. Where you've got all the ingredients of those great In-N-Out Burger animal fries all mixed together. And
not just poured on the top.
Exactly.
And if the fries are warm, that helps all the more.
So much better. We need to get something right after. I'm missing my In-N-Out Burger. So.
Last time I had the animal fries, the fries were cold.
Come on.
Two, they just poured on. I'm like, come on, y'all need to start over.
Come on, In-N-Out.
There's some kind of training gap.
They'll get it together. It's just.
It's Denver. It's Denver. We haven't aspired to California.
We're learning. That's right.
So are you a beach dude?
Not a beach person. My mom couldn't swim. My mom still can't swim, so she was always afraid of the water. So we were never a beach family. We were. I mean, the church I'm at now, we're 5 minutes from the beach. But I was never a beach goer. So that's been kind of a new thing to get used to, beach community but no, I didn't grow up with that. Not a surfer. I even learned to swim later in life, not even early in life, because my mom would panic by having me anywhere that she couldn't get in and get me afterwards. So, didn't get to. Got to enjoy the beautiful weather in Southern California, but not the beach that much.
And you said something, because I read the intro in your anxiety field guidebook, which I really like. You talked a little bit about your mom and some of her worry and stress and checking to make sure the toaster was unplugged and the door was locked. You said that kind of had a little bit of some impact on you.
Yeah, my mom we grew up in a home where she was kind of we always saw her as a neat freak, and we made fun of her for having to have everything in order. But it was only later that she realized, and then I realized, wow, this is undiagnosed OCD. This is obsessive compulsive disorder. And I know people say nowadays, oh, I got OCD, but it's actually a condition that's treatable and manageable. But that's been a part of her life. And I think early on, I either was taught it indirectly or I caught it genetically, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
But that was part of my story too, a need to have things a particular way and having a sense of anxiety and distress when they're not that way. And that was really one of my first forays into thinking about my own anxiety was just identifying, do I have OCD? And if I do, what do you do about that? Because I always had these extreme ideas about people that have OCD, like hoarders and the people that can't leave their home. But I realized it's actually a lot more common than I knew. And that's helped me a lot to learn a little bit more and have a little bit more empathy.
Toilet paper over, under.
Yeah, over and under. And, there was a story from my church. We were doing some decorating in our church, and one of our volunteers set up a nativity display. And she said, hey, could you come over and check this out? And I was like, no, I'm sure it's fine. And she was like, no, I've worked with you several years. I just want to make sure that you like this. And I was like, I'm sure it's fine. And she said, can you please come and look at it? Because last year you asked me to move it, but you only asked me to move it about 5 inches to the right. And I was like, oh no. Like what is going on with me that I have this kind of particularity? And in my job and in other jobs that I've had, that kind of particularity is sometimes looked at as like noble perfectionism. But no, it's not. It's anxiety. And it's not perfectionism, it's obsessionism. And that's what I've been having to learn. What do I do with those unresolved feelings when something's not right? And that's kind of at the heart of what I've been kind of learning about myself with anxiety.
Any keys?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that struck me was that anxiety is a normal thing in life. Like God's designed our bodies and our brains to have anxiety, like the swimming example.
Sure.
Before I learned how to swim, if I walked up to a deep pool of water, I got anxious. That's good.
Yeah.
That prevents me from drowning.
Yeah.
And the way that, as I was reading about this, like God designed our bodies, when we sense a threat, our eyes dilate to allow more light in, blood rushes to our arms to give us more activity. Adrenaline is produced from our renal glands to get us ready for action. And then when the threat is gone, our eyes change, our blood flows differently, the adrenaline is reabsorbed. And that is part of the gift of God to prepare us for a threat. The problem is if we are preparing for a threat and the threat goes away, but the body doesn't turn on. Or our body awakens to a threat, but there's no threat. And that's that's the bad side of anxiety. So the good side is, boy, if you were in danger, your body goes to work right away. And you don't even have to think about it. You have to say, blood, start pumping. You don't have to do that. The body does that, and God designed it that way.
Right.
But what if the body is just doing something and the brain is doing something and it feels like it's out of our control? Well, that's the opportunity where you say, okay, God, help me to learn how to manage this thing happening in my body and my brain. And that also kind of de-shamed it for me.
Yeah.
Because I think anxiety and unwanted thoughts and feelings, it's embarrassing. The Bible says, don't be anxious, don't worry. Okay, let me stop. What happens when it doesn't stop?
Yeah.
So I think that's helped me a lot, just realizing this is normal. And then I can learn some new skills that can help.
Yeah. Totally good. Thank you so much for listening, watching. Of course, hit the notification bell right there because that'll give you an update when we put up new content. Thank you for subscribing and answer this question. What causes you to be anxious? What's the most common thing? Identify what causes you to be anxious. Like, it makes you think a little bit, but write that in the comments because it's kind of cool to see. And then also gives me some ideas about what I can do in terms of more episodes and series and things that we can kind of talk through a little bit. So I appreciate your input and thanks again for subscribing, watching, and listening.